In this A2 Sociology screencast, I'm going to give you some guidance about how to prepare for the mock exam that's coming up in January. So our college have decided that during the second week back after the Christmas break, and that's the week beginning the 11th of January 2016, there will be a mock exam week. The A2 Sociology mock exam will last for a total of 65 minutes and is divided up into two sections. Section 1 of the mock exam will be on SY3, and that's the work that we've been doing on the politics unit, and this section of the exam will contain one 15-mark question, and you'd be advised to spend about 25 minutes of the total time allotted for the mock exam on this section of the paper. And then section 2 will focus on the SY4 work we've been doing on world sociology, and it will consist of one 30-mark question, so that's a longer essay question, and that essay question will either focus on modernisation theory or it will focus on dependency theory. The SY3 15-mark question could potentially be about any of the key concepts that we've covered so far for that section of the course. So as I mentioned earlier, 25 minutes on this 15-mark question, and then for the longer SY4 question, you'd be advised to spend 40 minutes on that section of the mock exam. What you can see on the screen at the moment is some guidance about how to structure the 15-mark question on the SY3 section of the mock exam. And typically, in the real exam, these questions will start with the command outline and explain, and this means that they're looking for a really good descriptive answer rather than an answer that contains lots of evaluation, and they're normally going to ask you to outline and explain what is meant by a key term. So usually this question will be about one of the key concepts from the SY3 politics module. So this grid here gives you some guidance about how you might go about setting out your answer to this question. So in the first paragraph, your introductory paragraph, you need to define any of the key terms that are used in the question, and if you think the meaning of the term is contested, in other words open to different interpretations, then also flag that up briefly in your opening paragraph. And then in the main body of your answer, you need to try and make at least 4 key points that are relevant to the key concept that's used in the question. So for each point that you make, use this paragraph structure to help you really develop and explain things fully. So make sure that you identify the point that you're going to make in the paragraph, then explain that point, and try to make sure that your explanation is linked to key examples, sociological evidence, things that have been going on in the news, and obviously make sure that each paragraph is really closely linked to the concept that is used in the question. As I said, try to make a minimum of 4 points that are fully developed and explained, but the key thing is to be guided by time. So remember, it's 25 minutes of the allotted time available for the mock that you should be spending on this section of the exam. And although you don't have to evaluate in this question, you won't be penalised if you do include some evaluative points, because that's also good knowledge. If you need a bit more guidance about the SY3 section of the mock exam, then there are 2 other screencasts that I would draw your attention to. Firstly, in this screencast, I go through the specification for SY3 and also examination technique for this particular paper. And in this other screencast, called What I Think When I Tackle the Exam Paper, I go through a whole SY3 paper explaining the types of things that I would be thinking if I was tackling this examination paper for real. And both of these screencasts look at the SY3 paper as a whole. So as well as talking about the 15-mark question, they talk about a 45-mark question. Remember, you won't be doing that on the mock exam. but we will be practicing 45-mark questions for the politics section in some of the progress tests that we do following the mock exam. Now, because the normal structure for the 15-mark question, not just in the mock, but more importantly in the real exam in June, is going to ask you to explain what is meant by a key term, it's really important that in the exam you can instantly recall the meaning and definition of all of the key terms from the SY3 unit. And that's why space retrieval practice, testing yourself regularly using the revision tool that I've created on Memrise, is absolutely crucial. If you can't remember the meaning of the key term used in the question, then you will be throwing away 15 precious marks. Now, one of the big challenges of sociology is the sheer quantity of key terms that you need to remember for each of the exams. And as you go through the course, at the same time that you start to learn more and more concepts, there is a danger that you will very quickly begin to forget key terms that you covered in earlier parts of the course. And this is what is shown on this particular graph, which is known as the forgetting curve. Look how quickly we forget things that we had previously learned. Now, the way to prevent this erosion of memory from occurring is to engage in spaced retrieval practice of key concepts. This is what the rest of the graph shows, that if we constantly revisit key terms at spaced intervals, then we can prevent this forgetting curve. And cognitive psychologists show that the best way of going back over material is to go back over material just at the point that you're beginning to forget it, and to go back over material not by rereading or highlighting your notes, but engaging in retrieval practice, which is just fancy jargon for testing yourself. And Memrise, remember, is explicitly based on space retrieval practice, so it's based on the best evidence that we have from cognitive psychology about how you actually remember stuff in the long term. And I would argue that it needs to be an absolute priority to make sure that you are using Memrise for about 10 minutes on most days between now and the exam in the summer. If you use Memrise in that particular way, with that frequency, it will have a huge impact on your ability to remember the large number of concepts that are essential for the A2 sociology exams. Now remember, the second section of the mock exam is going to focus on SY4 and the world sociology work that we've done, and it will be a longer essay question on modernisation theory or dependency theory. The other theories, though, still need to be learned, because you can use other theoretical perspectives to help you evaluate the theory that is used in the question. For example, you could use some of the arguments that neoliberals make to challenge and criticise both modernisation theory and dependency theory. Now, one of the best ways to set out a longer essay question where you've got to evaluate a theory is to use this 5-part essay structure that we've gone through in class. And remember, to maximise your chance of getting the highest grade possible, section 4, where you're evaluating the strengths and weaknesses of the theory, needs to be the longest section of your answer. And this 5-part essay structure is something that I go through in detail with examples in this particular screencast, which is the second of 2 videos that I've made about writing longer essay questions for A-level sociology. One final piece of advice before we finish is to use the resources on iLearn to help you prepare for both the mock exam and the real exams this June. So if you click on any of these exam skills buttons, it will take you to the section of iLearn where you've got all of the revision and exam skills resources that you will need to be fully prepared. And I've tried to put everything there that you would need to really get ready for the exams, including links to all of the relevant exam skills screencasts, past exam questions, summaries of key concepts, links to the specification, and lots of model answers. So everything that you would need to really be ready for the exams is there at your fingertips.